Ladies and gentlemen, Krzysztof the Polish Geek welcomes you to another video game review, and I decided to talk about Nintendo 3DS, a console that actually was pretty popular during its generation right when it came out, and almost all the gamers had Nintendo 3DS, but then as soon as Nintendo released Nintendo Switch, then very quickly Nintendo 3DS did fall out of popularity, and it's not particularly accessible now, which is a real shame because its video game library was actually really excellent, from like Nintendo 64 ports of classics like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, as well as Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and Star Fox, or some new original titles of Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds and Luigi's Mansion 2. But my favorite Nintendo 3DS game, and the one that we're gonna talk about, is actually this underrated hidden gem, Kid Icarus Uprising. Oh my gosh, how much I love that game, and I truly think it very much deserves a Switch to port now. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be the case, but it totally deserves it. But yep, my favorite Nintendo 3DS game is easily Kid Icarus Uprising. The original Kid Icarus game was an NES title created all the way back in 1986, and the game was a typical side-scroller based on Greek mythology. It was extremely difficult, just was common for the NES games to be difficult. Like the NES time period, like the games back then were basically completely unforgiving. And then the game was pretty quickly forgotten, and for 25 years there were no more Kid Icarus games. But then the characters made it to Super Smash Bros., and that's how the franchise was remembered once again and revived. The then president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, approached Masahiro Sakarai to create a launch title for Nintendo 3DS, which was then in development. So Masahiro Sakarai, the creator of Super Smash Bros., by the way, created Kid Icarus Uprising, and he was responsible for writing the story as well as creating the gameplay and all that. And now we have one of the greatest games in the Nintendo 3DS library, and it's obvious how much love and passion Masahiro had for creating this awesome game. Kid Icarus Uprising is the game that I consider a masterpiece, because this word is very much misused nowadays, and I admit I also been kinda misusing it in the early days of this channel, but yes, Kid Icarus Uprising is very much a masterpiece. It's so amazing, and if it had much more accessible controls, I think it could be another beloved Nintendo classic. And I actually was also very turned off by controls at first, but I got hang of them quickly now, and now I just cannot imagine the game being played any differently. I did hear that it's kind of harder for left-handed players, but can't speak on that really. Kid Icarus Uprising is my favorite Nintendo 3DS game, and it's actually one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time, because this game is pure Nintendo at its finest, and it also has so much content packed and so much attention to detail. It's so goofy, doesn't take itself too seriously, and even still tells a great story with compelling characters, and also has some really dark elements, but in classic Nintendo lighthearted way, and it fully combines its story with the gameplay. I played Kid Icarus Uprising back in 2014, which was like 2 years after it came out, and loved it so much, and it's been one of those games I've been replaying so much. It's so underrated only due to controls, but truly it very much deserves a Switch port, or Switch 2 port, since Switch 2 is out at this point. Sadly, that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, and the game's creator, Masahiro Sakarai, is very much sure it won't ever happen, even if he would like it as much as the rest of us fans. But Thank you, Masahiro Sakarai, for an amazing game you created. It's just clear how much love and passion you very much had for it, because everything in Kid Icarus Uprising just screams Nintendo, from craziness, gameplay first and foremost, breaking the fourth wall, and just plain having fun. This is the most Nintendo-like game in existence. The main and playable character in the game is an angel named Pit, in the service of a goddess, Lady Palutena, in the world clearly inspired by Greek mythology and combined with unique, creative Nintendo style. Pit helps Lady Palutena fight the forces of the otherworld, led by the evil Medusa. Or it seems so at first. We'll get to the cool twist later, even if it seems like a pretty well-known twist pretty much at this point. I love how the game combines gameplay and story. Nintendo is very much gameplay first and story second, but Kid Icarus Uprising combines both wonderfully that it might actually be hard to talk of one without the other actually. The story is about this aforementioned angel Pit and his goddess Lady Palutena, and the setting, as I already said, is based and inspired by Greek mythology. Pit and Lady Palutena are obviously new original Nintendo characters, though Palutena does seem like a combination of Hera and Athena. Main villain, at least at first few chapters, is Medusa. I mean, obviously, Medusa from Greek mythology, but this time she's much more evil, because let's face it, the original Medusa from Greek mythology wasn't really evil, she was practically a victim actually, but the game isn't a retelling of Greek mythology, it's a Nintendo rendition of it, so let's have fun and freedom, because why not? To talk more of the story and character interactions, I do have to talk about the gameplay more, because as I said, this game very much combines gameplay and story and very much integrates them. Like I already said, the controls might be what turned a lot of people away from this game, because they're certainly not the most accessible controls, but as I said, at least for me, once I got a hang of them, which was actually pretty quickly, I just cannot imagine the game being played any differently. So let's dive into the controls, because the game is split into many chapters, and each chapter is split into two sections. A flying section where Pit flies around and gameplay is a rail shooter, which in some ways plays like Star Fox, but I think this game is way better than any Star Fox game. And then there are land sections where Pit runs on the ground, and now gameplay is more of a third-person shooter. I mean, Nintendo third-person shooter, but still. And as Pit flies around or runs, you use regular controls to move him, but in order to aim his weapon, you gotta use a stylus. Or a pad that doesn't write, of course, could work as well. Or even a back of the toothbrush could work. Because those admittedly are pretty unusual controls. They understandably turned a lot of people off from this game. But for me personally, as I said, the controls were actually quite easy to learn. Again, I did hear that it is much harder for left-handed players, but unfortunately can't really speak on that, because the top 3D screen is one where Pit flies and fights enemies, and in the bottom screen is where character portraits appear and have really cool and funny dialogue, is where you touch screen with a stylus and aim weapons, which is just so much fun. The story is just wicked good, but also super crazy and bizarre, filled with lovely characters and so much fun and humorous dialogue told mostly as you are playing the game. This is just embodiment of Nintendo. This game is pure Nintendo. As I said, Nintendo is very much gameplay first, story second. Kid Icarus Uprising still manages to have an amazing creative story, while still very much maintained being very much gameplay first and foremost. The characters are talking to each other during gameplay sections as if a commentary on the gameplay itself, while also moving the story forward. This is a smart design choice, and it makes it so that the story is very clearly happening, and to make a player invested in the story and characters while still maintain focus on gameplay, and still dialogue between characters is just excellent and so funny and cleverly written, while it very much tells a story and is used to give depth to characters as well as explain story events that are happening, but the characters also frequently comment on the gameplay as if they are playing the game together with the player and making so many funny references to plenty of things, such as references to other Nintendo games, for example.
Made us look like little Metro.
I can't hear you!
Hey, what's your problem?
This game universe and that game universe have nothing to do with each other. So don't go around spreading rumors.
And once even Divinipedia is mentioned. Divinipedia is a Wikipedia based on Kid Icarus, and as I said,
How did you know that?
Oh, Pyron told me.
Man, is that guy obsessed with the armor? What? Sure knows a lot about them.
That's because I spent a lot of time on Divinipedia.
Divinipedia? Send me the link.
The time for learning is past. Attack the Orange Brain!
the dialogue is super humorous and even the characters themselves joke around and crack jokes amongst themselves even when something very serious is happening during the story, and it all works so well, like Pit and his relationship with Lady Palutena. Lady Palutena constantly mentors Pit and gives him advice, which also often overlaps with the game tutorial, but she also teases Pit a lot during the gameplay sections and pokes fun at him, kinda almost like an older sister would tease her little brother. And this is all so funny, like...
The arm probably uses more high-tech ways of detecting intruders. Maybe a brainwave scanner or something. No, it was probably the smell.
The way the characters here are fleshed out is just excellent. Nintendo certainly isn't known for fleshing out characters, even in Zelda games, which generally do in fact have compelling stories. Characters are pretty one-dimensional, even if they're still pretty likable, but that's certainly not the case for the characters in Kid Icarus Uprising. Like I say, characters in Kid Icarus Uprising are quite given some emotional depth, and there are some even pretty complex characters like Viridi, Goddess of Nature.
What was that?
I shot it, I did say so myself. Good riddance, human scum. The world's better off without you. That was the goddess of nature, Viridi. Pit, go check things out.
I'm on it.
So you're the famous Palutena. I hear you've been busy.
Or Dark Pit, basically a dark version of Pit and more selfish version of him, created from the mirror during the game's story. Initially, Dark Pit seems to be nothing more than a dark, evil rival to the real Pit, but he actually turns out to be far more complex, and he gets his own character arc and is a pretty character in his own. Still, every character is amazing, and seeing them interact during the levels is so awesome and so funny. I just love those characters and their dialogue. I really love the huge enemy variety in this game. Like, enemies here have some of the craziest, wildest and most imaginative designs I have ever seen. And as I said, the variety in this game is just amazing. Like, there is, for example, a tempura wizard, a wizard with a shrimp tempura for a head that can turn Pit into a tempura and eat him right away. And it's kinda tasty too, because, newsflash, shrimp tempura is actually one of my favorite foods ever. So excited to have lots of it when I go to Japan someday. And there are also those muddy monsters that melt and rise up. They're pretty challenging enemies, actually. There are also those orange octopuses, as well as reapers. Yup, the enemy variety in this game is just huge, and there are just too many to really talk about them all. Boss battles are excellent. What I like is that they combine a bizarre and imaginative designs of enemies from this game with elements of Greek mythology monsters. Like the first boss is the Guardian, who's clearly based on Cerberus, or maybe on Cerberus' brother Orthus, considering he has two heads like Orthus, but done in a way that very much fits into the Kid Icarus universe. Then there is Huge Row, clearly based on Learning and Hydra. Great Reaper is awesome as well, and he in turn seems to be the Kid Icarus spin on classic Grim Reaper. And there is also Thanatos, God of Death, one of the most hilarious characters in the game, as well as Space Kraken, who gives me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. Huge fan of those movies. But the best is the final boss, who is...
I said wait just a second.
Got to be hearing things.
Hades,
Who's Hades?
the true master of the underworld.
Yep, speaking of Hades, now it's time to talk of that aforementioned twist, which single-handedly elevates a pretty good and fun game into a great game, into my favorite 3DS game, as Pit defeats Medusa, credits roll, and it seems game is beaten, only to reveal you have only beaten like 1/3 of the actual game. The actual main villain is Hades, who's been pulling strings all along, and then the game goes into a very different and really interesting direction, and in many ways it feels like a true beginning. I gotta speak of Hades himself as a villain. He's such a fun and excellent villain, by far my favorite Nintendo villain, but also probably the most evil Nintendo villain actually. Either him or Ridley from Metroid, but I love Hades so much. He also looks so awesome, probably one of the most awesome looking villains in any video game, comparable to plenty of From Software villains, certainly much more light-hearted obviously, but by Nintendo standards still very grotesque and creepy and twisted and awesome. The physical design for him is just pure perfection and imagination, plus he's also so funny. I love how during character conversations he just trolls everyone else and talks of his evil plans like about the regular weather, like
I've got a heaping helping of underworld goodness for you, kid.
He's saying that more enemies are on their way. Clever, huh?
Why would you want to do that? Where you pinheads see adversity, I see opportunity.
Hades!
For example, this battleship looks like it could use a home. Now's your chance, minions. It's looting time!
while constantly cackling about his evil. I just love that there is a perfect balance between keeping him funny and lighthearted and consistent with the game's tone, but also very dark and evil, and truly feeling like an evil and dangerous maniac that he is. And whoever voices him is such a perfect pick. Like, this guy is a true menace and a psycho, yet he's just so awesome and so amazing and so funny, likely the funniest character in the game and most evil at the same time. He has some of the best lines in the game, and he's called King of Trolls for a reason, with how he constantly loves to troll other characters and the player, of course. It's all so funny, as I just said. He's definitely the most evil Nintendo villain, but I mean, if you count the mainstream Nintendo games. If you also count Nintendo spin-offs, then I guess you could argue Dimencio from Super Paper Mario is even more evil. But Hades is certainly the most evil from the mainline Nintendo games. I've seen plenty of my fellow fans of the game begging for a sequel, but Masahiro Sakarai said that he isn't doing a sequel, that he had an idea for one game and it's done. I think it's a smart choice, actually. Sometimes there just isn't a need for a sequel. Kid Icarus Uprising is a perfect game as it is, with a complete, well-told story and amazing conclusion. And that's not to say that a sequel couldn't necessarily work, but I believe that creators all over often go overboard with sequels, often because fans beg for a sequel, not because they actually have a great idea in mind. Kid Icarus is fantastic, and I won't hide, I would very much love more if an amazing idea could happen. But at the same time, I also believe that if you do a sequel, you actually need a passionate team with a really good idea in mind, which is what very much the first Kid Icarus Uprising was. And that's the thing about the sequel. I'm up for a sequel if you have another passionate team with a really amazing idea in mind. Sometimes what we have is totally enough, and that's my stance on Kid Icarus Uprising getting a sequel, but I very much would love if it got a Switch 2 and Switch port, because that way more people will finally play this awesome game.
Victory!
Kid Icarus Uprising is not only a Nintendo 3DS masterpiece and my favorite Nintendo 3DS game, but it's actually one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time, together with the likes of Donkey Kong Country trilogy, as well as Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door or Super Metroid. Totally so. I really love Kid Icarus Uprising, and it's one of those video games that anytime I play it, I just keep reminding myself of why I love video games so much in the first place, and why I'm such a Nintendo fan. Although admittedly, ever since Iwata died, who was a CEO of Nintendo at the time of when Kid Icarus Uprising was being produced and released, their consumer practices have been questionable at best, but I truly love Kid Icarus Uprising, and this game totally deserves a Switch 2 port. Sadly, it doesn't seem like it's getting one, unfortunately, but so glad to still own my Nintendo 3DS and a copy of this magnificent game. So, I'm gonna say it now. Kid Icarus Uprising is an underrated hidden gem and the best game on Nintendo 3DS, which says a lot because, as I said in the beginning of the video, Nintendo 3DS had some truly excellent gaming library. So, folks, thank you for checking out this video game review. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then, bye!